I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
Regulatory Standards Bill, third reading.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable David Seymour.
Mr. Speaker, I present a legislative statement on the Regulatory Standards Bill.
The legislative statement is published under the authority of the House
Mr. Speaker.
and can be found on Parliament's website. The
Mr. Speaker.
David Seymour.
I move that the Regulatory Standards Bill be now read a third time. Mr. Speaker, the Regulatory Standards Bill is a good idea that has been a long time coming. I would like to acknowledge the many staff, MPs, including the Honourable Rodney Hyde, the Regulatory Standards Task Force, and particularly Bryce Wilkinson, the Ministry for Regulation, and particularly Grania and Andrew, the Select Committee led by Cameron Brewer, and my colleagues in the ACT Party and across the government who have all at different times worked to make this possible. And I'd like to start with a thought about Asmoglu and Robinson, two guys that just got the Nobel Prize for their work on institutions and how they contribute to people's prosperity. And their basic idea is that we benefit from a long tradition that established this Parliament, the courts and the executive, a strong state capable of stopping anarchy that is nonetheless restrained by the tension between that government and the rest of the community. That is the balance required so that people can live free and prosperous lives. And in recent decades, our society has continued to build the tension between our civil society and our state so that we can be free and prosperous. We have, for example, put in place the Public Finance Act in 1989 so that New Zealanders can see when politicians are racking up debt on their account or wasting their money. We've put in place the Reserve Bank Act so that New Zealanders can see if politicians are inflating away the value of their savings. And we put in place the Bill of Rights Act in 1990 so that people can see if politicians are making laws that violate their basic personal freedoms. These institutions are critical. They don't restrain Parliament, they don't stop politicians from making laws, but they do create that critical tension between the civil society that's informed and can see what politicians are up to and can critique it, on the one hand, and a strong state that can prevent anarchy and protect us from violence on the other. But sadly, so far, we have not put in place a law that exposes the impacts of politicians putting restrictions on the use and exchange of property. The Regulatory Standards Bill changes that. If you want to pursue some cause, then you need to be open about whether it is going to impact people's value that they get from their property and the value that they get from their time. This government follows too many who failed to do that adequately. The cost of the restrictions are immense and they are felt throughout our society. It is the teachers who say, all I wanted to do was help young New Zealanders reach their potential, and all I actually do is fill out forms and comply with bureaucracy. It's the builders who complain it takes longer to get permission to build something than actually build it, or the financial service workers who say they can't give financial advice to the people who really need it because under the rules they can't afford it. It's a generation marching because fundamentally they don't believe that they will have their own property in one of the most sparsely populated countries on earth because we've made it too hard to build the homes and the infrastructure that connects them together. But sometimes these stories of politicians making laws and regulations are deeply personal. And I'd like to tell the story of one such woman I call Robin. She worked for 45 years in the public sector, in charity in this country. She said, I believe in this country, till it was all taken away. And what happened is that she'd built up a pretty good nest egg. She was looking forward to a retirement, being able to spoil her grandchildren. She owned her apartment where the body corporate decided to knock off some routine maintenance. But unfortunately, they ran into the earthquake strengthening laws, And $1 million later, she has no savings and she has to sell her apartment. Remember, she said, I believed in this country. She came to my electorate office and she insisted on reading out her story through tears. And people should just think about these human faces sometimes, what happens when people make a law for some worthy purpose, but don't actually ask what the impacts on individuals will be. Robin's true bitterness and sadness came from the fact this Parliament has now realised those laws actually never stacked up and we will get rid of them. If only, and here is the really sad thing, if only the advice at the time had been given more prominence and taken more seriously. That is what the Regulatory Standards Bill will do. It will ensure that new laws are accompanied by a consistency accountability statement that will largely replace the current but sadly ignored regulatory impact statements. These consistency accountability statements will be based on the principles provided for in this bill. For the first time actually put in legislation, that they will say we have to identify the cost of people's liberty being restricted, their property rights being impaired, or fees and levies that are unreasonable. Among other principles, we will identify the impacts, and the Regulatory Standards Board will act as a watchdog, seeing to it that the consistency accountability statements are fully accurate and open to the people. The Act will also provide for reviewing already existent laws against those principles. It will empower the Ministry for Regulation to request information from other departments when going about those duties. Now, I want to say a little bit to the critics, who have been many, but in my view, poorly informed. People say that this bill should have amongst its principles things such as equity or upholding te tiriti or public health or environmental custodianship. The misunderstanding is that any government can still pursue those collective goals through collective action. The point of the Regulatory Standards Act and its principles is to identify the costs of those laws and those collective projects on individuals. If you want to identify a significant natural area on someone's farm, you can. But if the rest of the community really believes it's that valuable, perhaps they should be prepared to compensate that farmer rather than make them bear all the cost for a collective goal and do so without even acknowledging the cost being put on them. Where this bill leads us is a more respectful and more civilised society, one where if you want to benefit, if you want to pursue an objective that you think is worthy, and if you want to impose costs on other people using and exchanging their property, or you want to take up their time to achieve your goal, then as a start, you have to at least be open and honest about the facts that you're doing it. Parliament can pass the law if it really wants to anyway. But just like we have kept in that narrow corridor between a strong civil society and a strong state when it comes to spending people's taxes, printing more money to devalue their savings, or passing laws that violate their basic personal freedoms with the Public Finance Act and the Reserve Bank Act and the Bill of Rights Act, the Regulatory Standards Act means that politicians need to at least be open and honest about the impacts that they have on individuals when they pursue their goals. That is what we need to be doing in this Parliament. It is a movement towards a more civilised society where adults treat each other respectfully. That is something that I look forward to implementing over the next 6 months as this bill comes into force. I am very proud to stand behind it. I'm very grateful to all those I named at the beginning who have helped make this dream a reality so far, and I commend this bill to the House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Dr Duncan Webb.
Kia ora, te mana whakaua. Within the first 100 days of the next Labour-led government, we will repeal this bill. We will get rid of this bill at the first opportunity.
Mr. Speaker.
Tamatha Paul.
Mr. Speaker, this bill is a bit like a cockroach. We keep stamping it out, but it just won't die. This is capitalism, and this is recolonisation. Make no mistake, this is capitalism. We're going to burn capitalism to the ground, because socialism is about honouring and upholding the dignity of all people.
Mr. Speaker.
Oh, Cameron Brewer.
Oh, Mr. Speaker, I want to use this occasion to congratulate the ACT Party on what has been over 20 years of advocacy and hard work by the ACT Party, and this Regulatory Standards Bill gives effect to Nationals, it gives effect to Nationals' coalition agreement with ACT. And we heard and we consulted widely. We heard approximately 30 hours of oral evidence and received over 159,000 written submissions. And of course that was on top of over 23,000 submissions last year after considerable departmental consultation. But as Chair of Finance and Expenditure, Madam Speaker now, I want to point to the fact that we have improved this bill considerably with amendments that have seen the tightening up of the board and chair's independence and separation from the minister and government of the day, consistent with provisions in the Crown Entities Act. And so again, I congratulate the ACT Party.
Honourable Casey Costello.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to speak on this third reading of the Regulatory Standards Bill and to bring some context back into the very emotional debate that has occurred, but bring it back to some semblance of fact. Again, the principles of socialism, as we've heard so many times before, is the trouble with it is eventually you run out of other people's money. Madam Speaker, we support this bill because on the fundamentals it promotes open and accountable government that legislates with key principles in mind: the rule of law, efficiency and regulation, property rights, an independent judiciary, and the belief that every New Zealander is equal before the law. And that equality relates to your equality of opportunity, that everyone has that chance to achieve their full potential. So therefore, we have no hesitation in commending this bill to the House.
This call is a split call. WhangāreiTim.
This bill may pass in the House today, but it will not survive our people tomorrow. Kia ora tata.
Dr. Lawrence Yunnan.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill essentially embeds a neoliberal cuckoo egg in every legislation. It is a parasite. We have seen the school lunches being harmful for our tamariki to the point that it's a health and safety risk.
Back to the bill.
I don't know about you, Madam Speaker, but the Green Party see this as a zombie Frankenstein of a bill that does nothing for Aotearoa. New Zealanders care about each other and the planet. And they will not stand by this bill. And so the Green Party will repeal it for sure.
Honourable Chris Pink.
Oh, thank you, Madam Speaker. I don't have time to talk about the fires burning in the ahi mentioned by Te Pāti Māori, even as they engage in their own acts of self-immolation. And a brief contribution, Madam Speaker, I just want to focus on the comments made by the Honourable Dr. Duncan Webb, alleging some form of democratic deficit. As the sponsor of the bill has quite rightly pointed out, this is merely an accountability mechanism such that Parliament can still pass laws, notwithstanding that it will have to account to the people of New Zealand about the way they're in the past and the effect that they will have on ordinary New Zealanders. I'd also point out that Parliament's already given a much more muscular power to the courts and able to declare legislation inconsistent with the New Zealand Bill of Rights Act. That's a much more muscular power. That is a genuine democratic deficiency, and this Parliament has already established that it's happy with it. While courts can't strike down legislation in the same way as the Supreme Court of the United States, thank goodness, nevertheless we require of ourselves some kind of response when courts engage in that way. This is a much more tame, much less muscular power. It's an exercise in increasing accountability, democratic responsiveness, and I join others on this side of the House in recognising this commitment within our coalition agreement, and I commend the bill to the House.
Honourable Dr Deborah Russell.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, when we are elected to government, we will repeal this bill. We will repeal this shoddy legislation.
Todd Stevenson.
Madam Speaker. Look, I've listened to some of the contributions and I think they were debating an entirely different bill in an entirely different time. The Regulatory Standards Bill is very easy to pick up and read. If we actually look at its purposes, it actually does some of the things that it's been criticised for, like supporting Parliament's ability to scrutinise bills, ensuring we're developing high-quality legislation and exercising stewardship over regulatory systems. So look, that's just in clause 3 of the bill. So really it's already doing some of the things it's been criticised for. And its principles are very straightforward in clause 8. The rule of law. No one can disagree with the rule of law. Even Deborah Russell accepts that the rule of law is important and it sets out what that is. Very easy to read. Liberties. It's talking about people's ability to own property and do with it what they will. And if that's impinged, that's what we start to look at in this bill. And again, as the Minister outlined in his excellent introduction, it doesn't stop Parliament doing anything. What it does is it makes sure that the people entirely understand what Parliament's doing when they infringe on their property rights or take them away. I hear parts of Te Pāti Māori yelling out at me from down there. It's hard to know. I mean, they didn't even bother to do a differing view on this bill. That's how engaged they were in it. You can easily read through the important principles that this puts in place. It's not going to restrict Parliament. It simply provides more
stop the
information
interjections and let the person giving the speech tell us what he wants to tell us.
It simply provides more information for the public to judge whether a minister or a government is doing the right thing, what the costs of doing that thing are, and whether it is supported. This is an excellent bill, and in fact, members of the opposition should actually be supporting it, because when it infringes treaty property rights, it actually will be a useful thing. So I commend this bill to the House.
This is a split call. Honourable Kieran McAnulty.
This bill will be repealed within 100 days of the next government. This is dumb. This is stupid right-wing thinking that New Zealand First and National had the opportunity to say no to, but they were more interested in becoming ministers.
Great speech. Nancy Lowe.
Madam Speaker, I stand to speak in support for the third reading of the Regulatory Standards Bill. The FEC that I'm part of have worked really hard to improve the bill from its original state till now to pass in the third reading. We have tightened the board and the roles and the responsibilities for the Minister of the Day. The FEC have put in the hours of the work to improve the bill. This bill also gives effect to the National Act Coalition Agreement that New Zealanders actually voted for. So therefore, congratulations to the ACT Party, and I commend this bill to the House.
Aruna Williams.
Takura koe, taurawa ki te whare, ka ngaro atakahi e, te whare o te kahi katoa. Hei ngau whakapai e, hei whakapai ururoa e hau mai nei, kei waho kei te moana, ka ore aku mihi e, aku tangi mō koutou. Maupuku ko te iwi e. Ka mo wai tonu te whenua. E tako nei e. Madam Speaker, you can hear my emotion in my voice today. The next Labor government will repeal the Regulatory Standards Bill within our first 100 days.
Bidwell.
Madam Speaker, I've listened intently to the debate in the House today, and there's nothing new that has come from this debate that I haven't heard already in the Finance and Expenditure Select Committee. This bill is all about accountability of the executive. On balance, I think this is a positive step forward. I certainly look forward to the day when we see more cost-benefit analysis. I've seen far too many bills across this House with very poor drafting, very poor cost management, cost-benefit analysis, and I want to congratulate the ACT Party, and I commend this bill to the House.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. No. The ayes have it. Party vote is being called for, please, Clerk.
New Zealand National.
49 in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party of Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Tuko Māori mga poti kia whakahe.
ACT New Zealand.
11 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
8 votes in favour.
Te Pāti Māori.
E whanga pōti e whakaheana.
Tāku Te Whereas.
Ko tai te pōti o te taitonga e whakahe ana.
Maria Mino Kapakingi.
Ko tahi te pōti kia whakahe.
The ayes are 68, the noes are 55. The question is agreed.
Regulatory Standards Bill, third reading.